I mean, I was told by my film professor, there are films and there are movies, and sometimes you've got to know what you're walking into.
Yeah. See, but I come from a time when movies were films.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Court of Cinema podcast. I'm your host, Logan, and here we talk about everything film and TV. And today's episode is going to be our second installment of our movie news kind of thing here. And I do have a couple of stories that both really do kind of merge together very beautifully here. Not really intentionally, but that's just how these new reports here came out over the past week. So the main thing here that we're going to be talking about is an article from Variety that just came out 5 days ago. It's kind of a little bit late here as I'm reading on this. But still, this article is about Disney boy trouble as the studio seeks an original IP to win back Gen Z men amid Marvel Lucasfilm struggles. And this is a very interesting article. Originally, I didn't want to speak on it just because this does kind of fall into the whole Hollywood is woke and feminism and the Democratic Party and blue-haired people are ruining our society and our children. You know, and I don't really want to sound like a Fresh and Fit or Andrew Tate or, any kind of Fox News kind of guy. That's not ever really my goal. I mean, movies are movies, and I try to keep everything fairly neutral when it comes to that. But still, since I fall into this quote-unquote young men demographic here, I figured, hey, let me talk about this. And also Disney is, they're kind of the biggest studio right now. I mean, since they own Marvel, Lucasfilm, and Fox, as well as Disney also being one of the bigger IPs out there right now, it felt important for me to just quickly chat about this. I'm not sure how long this episode will be, maybe like a, 20, 30-minute episode, but still, I realize that I do have a bit to say about this topic. It's something that's always been really controversial, and I have a lot to say on it. So just quickly here, going into our first article here, and it's going to be, I'll have a link down there below. It's from the Variety here, written by Matt Donnelly. In the first paragraph here, this is really the main thing we're going to talk about here today. It says that leadership at Walt Disney Studios has been pressing Hollywood creatives in recent months, multiple sources tell Variety, for movies that will bring young men back in a meaningful way. Young men is defined here as sources as ages 13 to 28, aka Gen Z. And, that's definitely very obvious here. And we can definitely come to the conclusion it's very out there and talked about a lot here throughout a lot of different studios and news networks, whatever, that Disney has gone quote-unquote woke in the past few years. Go woke, go broke. I won't really be speaking on that too much, but it's definitely, for a lot of people, pretty obvious that Disney has been pushing too much in terms of female-led movies and also more into diversity. They've pushed too hard in a way where people feel like it's not genuine. Instead of making movies that are meaningful, they're making movies purely for propaganda, is what I feel like the popular conversation is. And I can really dive into that conversation all day in terms of what it exactly means by propaganda. And there's just been so many iterations and so many examples. I mean, if you want to go into Marvel, you have She-Hulk. If you want to go into Star Wars, I mean, the last trilogy of movies had Rey Skywalker, who was the main lead in that trilogy. And it's a lot to really dive into, but it's definitely been an interesting time for the studio. I mean, they've been losing a lot of money. I think that the cause is definitely good, but the way they've gone about executing it doesn't really feel real or genuine. It feels like you're kind of forcing a message onto everyone, which isn't really, I think, what movies should be used for. And that's where I got kind of confused because on one hand, I say that you really shouldn't use movies for that way to be non-genuine and push a message, but at the same time, a lot of movies and shows have a message and they have true meaning behind them. I feel like the creators of these shows and movies that people are saying are woke, they believe the message and they're pushing them forward in the art form, which is done throughout a lot of movies and TV shows. So it kind of feels weird to critique this kind of go woke, go broke movement. But still, if we're looking at numbers and popularity by Disney, Disney is definitely on a downward trend here. And even some of the more recent stuff that isn't exactly the whole go woke, go broke thing, it's definitely been struggling there also. Looking at earlier this year, we have Thunderbolts. That was a solid movie, and it didn't perform that well. A big reason is because I think that Disney and Marvel still need to gain trust back from audiences. Even like Fantastic Four, it came out in July. That movie is performing not terribly, but still, it's definitely underperforming based on what we expect it to be at. And there's definitely been a lot of movies in general that just haven't been performing that well. But, Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, those were definitely supposed to be two bigger movies for Marvel and Disney, and they weren't that at all. And still, I've shown my immense amount of love to those films, even Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. I think those are some of the better Marvel movies of recent memory and also of the year. Thunderbolts is still one of my favorites for sure, definitely in my top 10 or top 5 for the year right now. And still, also Fantastic Four, very fun action movie, and it was great, but still, these films are underperforming, I think, because of just outside influence from audiences, not really being too sure exactly what they should be, watching in terms of what do I need to watch before this, and also maybe they're kind of weirded out by all of this kind of, the whole quote-unquote go woke, go broke agenda, which really is an entire conversation in and of itself for the future. But sorry, going back into this article is what we're trying to talk about here. We know why Disney isn't doing too good. I mean, it's a lot of different reasons, from bad CGI to too many sequels to too many spin-off shows and spin-off reboot things to just a lot of just the weird kind of, the whole wokeness in quotes. But this article and seeing this, I have some hope and also some concerns as well. Number one is my hope, because it's clear that this is important for Disney to get their head back in the game and get back on track and start making better movies, to start making good movies again and prioritizing making good films without the extra, in quotes again, propaganda stuff, whatever that even means. It's a weird conversation, I think, for movies. But still, it's clear they want to obviously have a new original IP to bring back Gen Z and male audiences, at least based on what this Variety article is saying, and a lot of people running with that. But, what does that look like is my question. What does that IP look like that a lot of Gen Z men are going to really love? I look back at just a lot of the cool, awesomest movies that I've had growing up. Pirates of the Caribbean is a great example. Transformers is another fire example. And maybe something along those lines of just cool action characters. Recent memory also Dune. I think that everyone loves Dune, and Dune was awesome, and it didn't have any kind of wokeness. I mean, there's a lot of female characters in Dune that I think are incredible female characters, and characters that I really, at no point, I am ever saying this is just a woke thing, this is just trying to force a propaganda. It never felt that way at all. It always felt genuine. The way Denis and that entire crew did that movie, no way in terms of, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Florence Pugh, an incredible list of incredible actresses in that movie. At no point did it ever feel woke to me. It always felt really genuine and really beautiful characters. But still, there's obviously some oddballs out that it's very obvious Disney is trying to get back in the board here. They're losing a lot of money in the box office side of things. It's definitely very apparent that they want to course correct into what we know and love. I think that their intentions, though, were genuine. Like I said, I mean, definitely trying to bring in more diversity, more of female leads and, more diversity. It's a good cause, but I think that them pushing as hard as they did and not really being genuine with it was the issue. Another movie that came out really recently, Sinners, is a movie from a black director, also mostly a black cast in that movie, and at no point does that movie ever feel like it's a propaganda thing. Even Black Panther, I rewatched the first Black Panther movie back in December-ish, and that movie also felt so genuine and beautiful, and I love Black Panther for a lot of reasons, and it still feels the same here today. So it's not the cause of the problem, but it's definitely, I think, the intention that isn't being executed the best way. And the very end of this article here, it's another little small blurb. You can read the entire thing. This is definitely, I think, a large topic to really dive into in terms of what is propaganda? What is this quote-unquote wokeness? I can really go into this conversation for a long time in terms of what I think in modern Hollywood is working and what isn't working and the reasons for both of those. But later in the article, we have here that it's a quote from someone saying that I never thought I'd say it. The exact muses about the Magic Kingdom's Boy Troubles despite its gem of iconic IP, but it looks like Disney is going to have to start trying. And that's so weird for them to have to start actually trying, and having Marvel and Star Wars, those are two of the biggest IPs out there, and a lot of men love them, and somehow making the fans hate them. and really, I guess, making the fans an enemy, looking at the fans as bad people and then kind of flipping it. It's not at all a good way to go about executing this in any kind of way, shape, or form, in my opinion, at least. Another little quote here that we have from Bob Iger. We have a little quote from a earnings call that I think definitely sums it up here in terms of what they're trying to do. Disney CEO Bob Iger confirmed as much of a quarterly earnings call this month that his film group won't favor existing IP over original material. The priority, Iger said, is to put out great movies. That definitely seems like it should always be the goal, but that doesn't really always pan out. Disney, it's important, I think, for any studio to just put out a good movie. Good is kind of weird because film is subjective. That's always the case. But good in terms of, it's good critically and amongst audiences and also good financially for them. And Disney hasn't really been good at either of those categories here. Looking at the Marvels, that was a massive loss of money. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Thunderbolts was a great movie, but still didn't do good. And even like Snow White, that movie bombed earlier this year, and they're definitely losing money. So something has to change here. Something has to change. There's definitely at some point here, throughout looking at exactly what's going wrong, there is a common denominator somewhere amongst this mess, and it's what the fans have been outcrying. Not what I've been outcrying, but still, the outcry of the wokeness, the sequels, the CGI being not entirely finished, the too much of everything isn't really good for what Disney's trying to do here in terms of running a good studio. So it's clear, it's apparent, you're really kind of a short and sweet kind of news here that they're trying to bring back young men audiences and trying to, in a TLDR, unfix the mess that they made these past few years over at Marvel and Star Wars with things like She-Hulk and The Acolyte, and the list goes on of a lot of just mismanaged franchises, and just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks isn't what's good, And it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And there's definitely been some diamonds in the rough. Recently I watched season 1 and 2 of Andor. Andor is one of the greatest things of this entire decade so far. It's top 5 of the decade. It's such a brilliant TV show. It's one of the best things from Star Wars ever. Like, it might be the best thing in Star Wars is Andor. And that happened in this whole quote-unquote woke era of Disney. And they're definitely seeing that this is what people like to see, not just men, but people as a whole. And they need to get back on this track of filmmaking. And, well, this is a show, but still, filmmaking and TV shows need another big win. They definitely need another big win in some kind of way, whether it's an original IP in, some capacity, or if it's revisiting a franchise like Disney or Star Wars or Marvel. And, we do have, in the next couple of years, we're going to have that new Star Wars film with Ryan Gosling. That might be the win that Disney needs, but we'll have to see until then. And then our other story here is, actually, it's came out recently, but it's a podcast clip from Snoop Dogg's podcast. I had no idea Snoop Dogg had a podcast until recently, until yesterday, actually, when I heard about this story. But Snoop Dogg, it's TLDR, I'll play the clip here too, but he took his son to go see Lightyear, and then his son started asking questions when the gay couple in Lightyear kissed on screen. And I'll play that clip right now, and you can just, listen to that here. It's a kind of a long clip, but it's definitely worth it.
I took my grandson to see, what was the movie with Buzz Light?
Toy Story?
Not that one, but
the new Buzz. The Lightyear. I think it's called Lightyear.
Yeah, with Kiki Palmer's in that movie.
Okay.
She plays like the daughter. So we watching it, and the lady, which is Kiki's mama, they move on into the space years. They move down the line. They're like, man, she had a baby with a woman. Well, my grandson in the middle of the movie like, Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, I didn't come in for this. I just came to watch the damn movie. Hey, man, watch the movie. They just said she had a baby. They both women's. How did she have a baby? Shh. The movie ain't over with. So it's like, I'm scared to go to the movies now. Like, y'all throwing me in the middle of shit that I don't have an answer for.
What'd you tell him?
Watch the movie. Eat this popcorn. Shh.
You said we don't know. We don't know.
It threw me for a loop. I'm like, what part of the movie was this? These are kids that we have to show that at this age. Like
that part.
They're going to ask questions.
Yeah.
They are going to ask. I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
That's definitely something. It's definitely a lot to take in. And just a quick correction also, that's not Snoop Dogg's podcast. It's actually the It's Giving podcast. I bet they're doing a great thing over there, but wanted to just clarify that so I don't get sued or something. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot. You know, this news came out last week at around the same time with the Snoop Dogg thing and also the whole Disney trying to win back their audience. What does this mean as an audience member, and what can we learn from this? I think that what we're going to be seeing here is Disney obviously shifting, Disney pulling back on what they did and trying to go in the direction of favoring their fans and their audience, which that's something that they really should do, you know, and their cause was genuine, but it wasn't really executed in a genuine way. It was forced, it was pushed, and it was in a way that made the audience members feel like they were the enemy. You know, the target audience of the Gen Z men maybe felt like they were antagonized in a way that really should never happen in any kind of space for movies or anything like that. But it's unfortunate that this happened, but, you know, it's definitely a lesson from Disney to course correct, which is what I think we're going to be seeing fairly soon here within the next few years. And there's definitely going to be some big wins coming out these next few years also. Like, you know, we have Avatar, that's going to make an easy $1 billion at the box office. Zootopia 2 might also be, in quotes again, woke, like people say. You know, Zootopia 2, we also have Mandalorian next year, which hopefully is good. I don't know yet. Avengers might be trash, but who knows again. And there's still a ton of other projects that'll come out that may start to gear towards the Gen Z men audience and less away from the female audience. And the last thing I want to say is that I don't want Disney to learn the wrong lesson here. That's my whole thing that I really want to come here and talk about, because I do think it's important to tell a genuine message about, you know, diversity and feminism, whatever you want to say. But I don't want them to learn the wrong lesson that, okay, She-Hulk didn't work, therefore we shouldn't have any other female-led projects, or Alkalight didn't work, therefore we shouldn't have any other kind of bold and different and trying to open up a universe to diversity. We shouldn't have that at all. That's what I don't want to happen. You know, I do see a lot of missteps, and definitely tragic missteps of, like in Snow White, the Snow White actress kind of tarnishing the image of the original, or like we had also, I saw a clip of the Peter Pan movie that came out a couple years ago now, I think at this point, but yeah, the Lost Boys in the Peter Pan thing. And then in the Lost Boys, there's two girls, which are also girls of color, which, you know, whatever, maybe that's not historically accurate, who cares? But, you know, it's the Lost Boys, and you're adding in two girls for, you know why. It's the whole quote-unquote wokeness of Disney that they've been really going on, which really isn't genuine, you know? And there's definitely still, for all the bad of the She-Hulks and the Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel of the world, there's still been some positives in there. You know, Barbie was a cool movie that maybe some Fresh and Fit and Joe Rogan and Andrew Tate guys may hate on, but still, I think that was a pretty cool one too. That was, I think, a good movie. You know, Greta Gerwig, she's been one of the best out there. You know, Barbie was good, and also Little Women, perfect film also in that regard. So I don't want, because Disney messed up, therefore other women can't get projects, they can't get work. Other people of color now shouldn't get any work because Disney messed up. Or we shouldn't have any more female-led projects because, you know, Disney messed up in the past, therefore, no one should have a shot anymore. You know, I just watched recently the K-pop Demon Hunters movie. That's going to be coming out next week for an episode. And I watched that movie. That movie's great. I actually cried in that movie. It's that incredible. It's a fantastic film. And at no point did I think this is woke or this is stupid. The K-pop Demon Hunters movie is awesome, and they're women leading that movie, and it's still one of my favorites of the entire year so far. You know, even like I said, Little Women, that's an incredible project also. And there's even from the past, there's so many examples of great women in movies and shows, and this is a conversation, like I said, that can go on for hours, that I can make an entire separate podcast based on this, but that'll be a different conversation for another day. But I just wanted to quickly come on here and just talk about this news. It's a very interesting and different story. I think we're going to be seeing a shift in Hollywood, a shift away from what we've been having these past few years, and a shift in a different direction, a different future. But still, once again, if you want to keep in touch with us, we're over on Letterboxd. That's my Letterboxd on there below, Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. I don't really post on socials anymore like that, but I'm going to try to maybe. I still would love to hear what are your thoughts on this news. I mean, is Disney going in the right direction? Is Disney right for pulling back away from all of the controversial woke stuff, or should they stay 10 toes down on their decisions? I mean, let me know, what do you think? I mean, the numbers financially and critically don't match that this era of Disney is working, but still, I want to hear what are your thoughts on this. I can definitely talk about this for a lot longer, but I don't want it to run into a super long episode. But that's been the news for today, and this is a very weird and different little segment of news. I just had to come on here and just give my thoughts on everything and, just display my concern for Hollywood in the future in terms of, not just, yes, bring back male audience, but like I said, the male audiences, that matters for money, but still, I think you should still keep growing and building on diversity in women-led films, more diversity of people of color in filmmaking, and not just because they messed up, pull everything back. That's my big concern. But still, let me know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on all this? I'll be talking about this, I think, a lot more in depth next week when I go into the K-pop Demon Hunters film. But this is definitely a kind of emergency breaking news kind of episode here from news from the past week. So let me know. But until next time, stay swagged out, stay cool, watch more films. Once again, we have a little fan mail thing down there below, so definitely sound off down there. Let me know your thoughts on this entire news breakdown. But until then, I'm Neil Slogan. I'll see you boys in the movies.